Welcome to Active Love Adoptions podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Griffith, and today we have George Ackerman talking to us about Parkinson's. He is an advocate for Parkinson's. His mother has passed on from that, and he's a huge advocate. So we're really excited to have him on today. So, George, tell me, give me your background on how you became such an advocate for Parkinson's. Obviously, when your own mother suffers from that, this is something that's probably close to your heart. So tell me how you kind of got started.
Sure. I want to thank you and your viewers for your time. It means the world to me and my family to help spread the word of Parkinson's awareness. It's really not just about, unfortunately, those who are diagnosed and their caregivers, but we have to reach so many more who are not aware. So thanks for giving me the time. My background, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I had a passion, unfortunately, for odd reasons, but seeing crime growing up, to go into the world of law enforcement and law, I just wasn't sure which was the best fit for me. I did feel that I needed to help victims of crime because a lot of the time, they have no voice, unfortunately, and some, unfortunately, are no longer with us, and the family members become secondary victims. So I thought maybe become a lawyer, maybe. So I went to work at the prosecutor's office for my internship, did a lot in that field. And then the other side is a criminal defense, more of the white collar type. And I noticed in the prosecutor's office, you just don't have the time to help victims like I wanted to. There's just too many cases. So I thought maybe I should go into the field. I went to the Miami Police Academy, which was interesting because I was a lawyer and a trainee, and they can't stand either of them. So I went to the academy, became a police officer. I'm still reserved today. And I found once again, you just don't have the time for so many calls. You hand a brochure and you go. Thankfully, I fell in love with teaching, and I became a professor and did my PhD in the area of helping African American mothers who lost their loved one due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I was able to work with family members who lost their loved ones, and really it meant a lot to me because I gave a voice to the individuals who were voiceless and the families who, unfortunately, are often forgotten by the whole criminal justice system and society. And from there, it kind of correlates to what I'm doing today. Sadly, I lost my mother due to Parkinson's on 1/1/2020. She was the young age to me of 69. And I feel like she lost at least 15 years of her life alive, and who knows how many more after she passed because of this disease. But often, again, the Parkinson's community is forgotten by our system of government. Thankfully, sitting here live, or when it airs, the first time in U.S. history, last December, they passed the bill called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease, and that was spearheaded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And that was really the first thing, and I urge you and your viewers now to join me in part of history, to reach out to your senator. So it's supposed to go to the Senate this year or next, and then the president just has to sign it. But it's really going to be the first time. It's shocking for me. It's the first time ever they're going to be able to help people who are diagnosed and caregivers, and hopefully come closer to ending this disease forever.
So what is the bill exactly? Can you kind of give us a little synopsis of what the bill would do for people who are diagnosed with Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's going to basically help fund research to again, end Parkinson's. It's going to bring more awareness. It's also going to spearhead the ability to gain and understand different communities that really don't have any reach to medical care. It's also going to really, the big thing is advocate for awareness, because right now there's no funding. Also, it'll help those individuals diagnosed maybe to pay for medications, which a lot of them are struggling with. So it's definitely an incredible bill. I really am actually also concentrating today. I'm shifting, not just, I have a book coming out next month I'm pretty excited about. I didn't really talk about it yet because it's like you don't want to jinx it till it gets out there. But I actually
you got to tell us about the book now that you've outed yourself.
No, you can't. No one can buy it. But that's
okay. You need the anticipation of it.
You're actually one of the first. You're one of the first I've showed. This is the cover. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, I love it.
So that was me and my mother at my wedding. We had the mother and son dance, and it was one of my favorite memories ever because everybody was so happy, and we could forget the disease even for a short time. That was just one of the most favorite days of my life ever. So, but my book's really, it's actually in memory of my mother, but it's the journey from her journey starting off, but then it shifts to my journey as a caregiver and to today as an advocate. So really takes you deep into the world of advocacy. And some people won't want to read it, which is odd to say, but because there's a chapter that says the last year. And if you're not aware of Parkinson's, and if you are, I actually kept a journal the last year of her life, and it shows the deepest, from the good, the bad to the ugly. And it's something that I was shocked when I was researching whether or not I should even write a book. And I'm very passionate about it, but I wanted her to be remembered. But there's no one in the world that I've seen, a son who lost their mother due to Parkinson's, that has a book, which I was shocked. So this will be also hopefully a first.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I think journaling is one way not only to help you heal through the whole thing, but to help others maybe not feel so alone in their journey too, if they are caregivers for their loved one.
Or to know what to expect.
Yeah, because sometimes that's the hardest, not knowing what to expect with a disease like this. Did your oh, go ahead.
Someone once told me recently, and I want to again thank both of you for this opportunity and your viewers, because I don't think it's just about, a 30-minute conversation. You all become my family. I will share this too on my side forever, but this is a conversation that needs to keep continuing. It can't just end after we shut the mic and the lights and the cameras and all the celebrity stuff happening here. But, it has to keep going, because the only way we're going to find a cure and end this disease is if everybody is on board. So again, thank you for that. It means, again, so much more than I can even ever express.
You're welcome.
Yeah, of course. We're happy to do this. How old was your mother when she was diagnosed?
Yeah, that's a great question. She had it for 15 years. She passed on 1/1/2020. I'm not the math guy, so you can do the math. But sadly, I don't know. And my mother was very independent. She was my hero, my best friend. We spoke. I didn't have the normal relationship. I'm proud of being a mama's boy. I might be 6'2", 200 pounds in law enforcement, but when you talk about my mother, even now, sometimes I go to the next room when I see my wife and just fall apart. It's tough still, even 4 years. But she had it for 15 years. My father says my parents were divorced. My mother really sacrificed a lot in her life. She was a school teacher for little children and had a master's in psychology, and sacrificed it all to take care of me and my brother. So I thought, she's given up so much. Number one, I wouldn't be the man I am today if it wasn't for her support and care. But when she needed it, I had no second thoughts to, being there by her side. It was a constant struggle. They say that you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it, but she had no other health issues. The most important things that I noticed, so she had it for 15 years. I didn't even know what Parkinson's was until the last 4, when because she was very private and quiet, even with us. She, in a way, didn't want to burden the family, but she was silent about it. So, which I kind of feel bad about, because I wish I could have done more if I had known earlier. By the time I took over, she had gone to a study with a special school, a university, which again, I don't blame, because it's not their fault, it's the disease fault. She was hoping for answers. She came back that night. I don't know if they drastically changed her medicine, but I was called to rush over at 4 a.m. to her house, and she had been moving her furniture out in fear that Nazis were going to harm her. And I realized then that the dementia, like late onset dementia, might have kicked in, and she was having delusions and hallucinations. And that was horrible. But I brought her to the hospital. They said we saved her life. However, that night I went back to her house, to get clothes. And around her room, like, we have Post-it notes. They were surrounding the room like the movie Beautiful Mind. Except on each note was people who had passed or animals, and she couldn't really understand at some points who was alive and who wasn't because of it. So, those are the kind of things that still haunt me today. But that's some of the signs. So she had stiffness in her arm, which didn't stop her from driving and living a life. But after a while, it kind of had trouble when we went out to eat to cut food. So we helped. Then also she started getting, it's called like curling of the toes, where you have dystonia. Also, there's a big problem with people with Parkinson's in their gait, so the ability to really, walk regularly. And as you probably know or aware, Mr. Michael J. Fox, the famous Canadian actor from so many, famous movies of all of us growing up, he has more external tremors, so you'll see shaking. My mother had more internal, which is frustrating too, because you have something and you think that people either don't, they're not aware, and that gets frustrating. So it's just a terrible disease, and that's just the start. After the last 4 years when I took over, I saw a lot more that we unfortunately probably won't get the time to see. So you have to read the book whenever it's available.
Yeah. Well, did she end up moving in with you and your wife that last 4 years, or did you go to her house and take care of her? How did your caretaking look?
That's a great question. I swore, and she made me, in a way, swear that she wouldn't be put in a home. There were days, though, I went through anger, sadness, depression, grief, uncertainty. The number one question today is, what are we going to do? Like, we were told, again, you don't die from it. We were in shock, that I lost my mother due to this, because it's not supposed to be. Parkinson's is very complicated and complex because every person it affects differently, and that's why there's unfortunately no cure today. So she lived on her own for many years. Then finally, when it was just getting worse, I bought a little house, brand new, built. Like, she was allowed to pick everything. Unfortunately, she got too sick to do it, so we did it. But she was only a community away, which was beautiful because we could see her a lot more. Unfortunately, the day I have the picture, she walked in the house. She was so excited and happy. Was the day she started declining in health, so she never really got to enjoy it. We had made a big decision to buy a bigger house, sell that, and bring her to be with us. But it was like a little guy on the good and the bad on your shoulders, telling you don't do it, because I wasn't. You can't take a course on it, caregiving, and I wasn't prepared. Even when I was doing it, there were days I wanted to give up and even go check out a home that I knew I couldn't because I promised her. So we, unfortunately, we bought the house. We're living here now as I speak, and there's a room that was for her. So when I walk by the hall and see that, it kind of reoccurs and kind of, self-tortures me every day, probably for the rest of my life until there's a cure. Because there's so many people now I've met, like both of you, and such inspirations out there who are fighting Parkinson's, and they are the reason I keep fighting. And some nights I don't sleep thinking about them.
Yeah, it's really hard. I think the biggest thing I've heard from people that are caregivers is just how hard it is on you guys as well, just the people, because it's a 24/7 job. And it's like you said, you go through all the emotions of depression, anger, sadness, happy, it's like you want your mom to be back to what she is. And I think that's the hardest thing too, as a child, watching your parents decline and also watching them decline so quickly and knowing there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. I think it would be hard. Yes. So I was calculating. So your mom was 69 when she passed, you said. So then she was 54
when she was diagnosed.
So she was.
Some of the problems with that too is we don't know if she was diagnosed, early in time. We don't know if she could have been even misdiagnosed. There are people out there who have something called Parkinsonians, which are kind of similar to Parkinson's, but not. And guess what? If you don't have the right diagnosis, or not even diagnosed, you're going to get the wrong medications. And then when you do have medications, are they given the right time? We had to hire a literal staff to kind of watch over her, because I just didn't want her to fall. Because if you fall at that, then that's another whole world. So we spent $12,000 a month just for the last year just to have people, and I don't want to be rude, but I called them a little bit like babysitters, because they weren't trained with Parkinson's. But and then as a police officer, I put video cameras everywhere, because my mother told me they were harming her, but in reality, it was the hallucinations. Plus, you take someone, imagine, I don't know about you too, but I'm independent. I have a family, but she lived alone and she liked her independence. So having all these strangers coming in, rotating, it's very frightening. And so it's just another thing on top of the Parkinson. Then the dementia, I was like one of those whack-a-mole games, just being hit every time. And, it's nothing. When I look back now, there's nothing I really could have done different. But my dream and goal was to find a cure. But at least if we didn't, to keep her as comfortable as we could at the time.
Yeah. So I know what Parkinson's is, just obviously from like Michael J. Fox and things in the news, but I know a lot of people don't totally know exactly what it is. Could you just give us kind of tell us medically in layman's terms, please?
Yeah.
And maybe some of the early onset symptoms.
Yeah, some of the early symptoms, or maybe things that could go misdiagnosed, and like things that you've experienced with your mom.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not a medical doctor, so I always say see your, motor specialist. It's usually a neurologist. I'm a PhD in non-medical, but I do talk about my experiences of my mother. Again, it changes and different for everyone, but unfortunately, Parkinson's is one of the fastest growing neurological disorders in the world, and not just the U.S. We have approximately 1 million people in the U.S., but now I'm noticing doing all these shows and things that people who aren't aware just realize that now the mailman might have it, or the local moving man, and this, and the cousins, and now it's almost becoming like an epidemic, and it's really frightening. But it's Parkinson's disease is a movement disorder, so the body, but it gets worse, unfortunately, over time. It's neurodegenerative. We did find now that 45 minutes of exercise a day might possibly slow down the progression, but again, that's different for everyone. Like my mother loved to walk, but she went from walking 2 miles in that last 4 years to a cane for 2 years, then to the walker, then to wheelchair and then bed bound, and we don't know why so fast. But it's nerve cells like neurons, and I want to get scientific, but the parts of the brain, they weaken, and they're damaged or die in a way. The neurons may begin to notice problems of movement, tremors, like we said, stiffness in the limbs or trunk of the body, to also lead to impaired balance, which is the frightening part. Some of the symptoms, like we mentioned earlier, are tremors, so that's the noticeable external, but people also have internal, which aren't as significantly noticed, and also rigidity, something called bradykinesia, and postural instability, which is what can cause a fall. The problem with Parkinson's is it's so different to each person. And again, I don't want to lecture at medical because I'm not a medical doctor. That's the only degree I didn't do. I did every other one. I probably should have done that
There's
one.
Still time. There's still time. Go back and get your medical degree. Why not?
When I finished my PhD with 300 pages, I thought I'll never go to school and I'll never write again. Now I have 5 books coming out and I'm a professor. I'm proud to call myself a hypocrite.
Yeah, you eat your own words. See, if you put it out in the universe, then it always comes back exactly what you said you don't want to do.
Yeah, and
the last note was the diagnosing Parkinson's is also just as complex. There's no actual way to diagnose Parkinson's. So what they do is they take a medical history, a neurological examination, blood labs and testing, and also brain scans to rule out other diseases. So they're actually looking for others. And then they figure out if it's not any of those, guess what? You have Parkinson's, which is not the most accurate. And now the nice thing is just last year, thanks to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which I'm actually going to be at an event this Saturday morning, my first one ever in South Florida.
That'll be fun.
It's called IQ. It's for the community, but they just discovered a biomarker, which is a huge breakthrough in technology, and I recommend everyone look it up on their own. We would need hours to talk about it, but it's basically an enormous leap forward in understanding Parkinson's, and researchers have discovered a new tool to reveal the pathology of the disease. And what I read about, and again, I haven't done this, but you can actually have a needle into the spine, which is already horrible enough, but it might be able to determine if you're going to have Parkinson's. I only say that because, unfortunately, May 21st, I'm having my 3rd major spine surgery. I have a lot of back issues, and that's another book for a different podcast day, but that's another. I have no exciting police races or stories, or just woke up at 42 and couldn't move really. So that's been tough for me, but I don't let that stop my advocacy because there's much worse things out there. And, I'm grateful for every day, but to be able to share my mother's journey and her fight is really what my mission in life is. And just so you know, I'm not a foundation. I'm just a son who lost his mother and best friend to this disease. And we don't accept money. I don't accept anything. The only thing I accept is there are people like me and you both that send our love. And I have a little statement I say at the end of every talk, but it's just, I don't want anything. I have to fight some days. I'm writing the next book on this about how to help people, but not want anything, and realize it, and just convince people to realize that there's people out there just don't want anything. It's sad that in 2024 that you know, because we do walks sometimes for like different organizations like Parkinson's Foundation, and I'll have a table and it's just me and a picture of my mother, and we hand out these bands for free around the world in memory of my mother for Parkinson's awareness. But on the both sides are pharmaceutical companies, and nothing against them, but they're usually selling some products. So people are scared to even come by me. But then they realize, I had one gentleman that was like, this is why I do what I do for completely voluntary, but he was in a wheelchair at a veterans hut, and I love my veterans. I worked with the Coast Guard Auxiliary, but his wife and him, they came over and they just started crying, and they hugged us because they realized what we were doing. And that's what inspires me again every day to keep fighting, because there are so many people who, you know, do feel alone and feel their voice doesn't matter. And I'm here to swear by my last day of my last breath that till, you know, we find a cure, though, I'm going to fight for every one of those people.
Awesome. So you mentioned you had a brother, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then obviously your father. Are they a part of this with you, or is this something that you have solely fought?
Unfortunately, my parents were divorced. You know, my mother loved my father till last day, but they had things and issues. I'm grateful for my mother moving, in a way, getting divorced, because we moved to Florida and I met my wife and my family. I wouldn't have had it if it wasn't for that. So her sacrifices again kind of helped me in a way. My brother is out there. He didn't have the ability to do as much as I did. So unfortunately, I was on my own most of this. But I'm grateful to my wife because she's been my support. I don't think I would have made it even to today without her. We've been married 12 years. We have 3 children, and my mother was in heaven. She had 2 boys, me and my brother. When my wife and I had our first child, Brooke, a girl, my mother was in heaven. Like literally, I saw the second best day of my life, seeing her whole face to shine. She always wanted a daughter to dress up with dolls and things.
You're like, Mom, I got your daughter.
And they were best friends. Unfortunately, there were days like I remember one in the book I recall, which was tough. My mother, my daughter Brooke at 7 years old, and me and I were sitting on her bed, and just another episode. My mother started hugging the sheets and saying how much she loved Brooke, and Brooke looked at me with an odd giggle, not understanding what was going on. I looked back and didn't know what to say, but the hallucination that hour or moment took over, and my mother thought Brooke, her granddaughter, was the pillows and the sheets, and that's what this disease, does, and it's just, a horrible situation.
Yeah, that sounds really hard, especially for a 7-year-old. They understand to a certain extent of things, but when grandparents start acting different, it must be really hard.
Is this something that's hereditary?
Yeah, that's a great question too, but no, they don't think it is. I personally feel, and now we're seeing more of this, that it's from the environment. My mother had a nice home, but didn't really take care of it. I don't know if she could have, but she had, mold in the house, termites, and normal things in a way that happened. But back then they used some horrible sprays, and we don't even know, I don't know if you remember, like, let's say 10 years ago, you'd have to leave your house for a day or two when they spray because of the fume. That shouldn't even have been allowed. If you have to leave your house, you probably shouldn't be doing that.
It's probably poisonous to you or something.
There's even a story, not to go too far, but in Florida where a young child passed because they came back too early from sprays. They also have Camp Lejeune, and I don't know if you're aware of, and other big time issues with the water. And I mean, the things that are going on, the government needs to get more involved. They're not. Maybe this bill will help open everyone's eyes. And it's great because it's bipartisan. There's no arguments. It's a great, who wouldn't want a cure for Parkinson's? Unfortunately, there were like 9 geniuses, I won't name the names, that actually voted against the bill out of over 400 and something. Who, I don't know. I kind of selfishly want to write them, but I just don't want to waste the time. But I don't know who would vote against the politics.
No.
Well, there always has to be someone who says no, just for the mere fact of saying no. They were like, I want to be.
It has to do with their backers, where they're getting their money from.
Yeah,
what they're allowed to vote for or against.
I know,
more than them individually, but.
Well, so I mean, I guess that's a good sign that it's not hereditary. So that's not something I mean, is that something that you feel like you would ever try to get tested for just to see, or do you feel like you're pretty much in a safe space that you won't have to worry about that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Yeah, I think about it. I mean, I could be diagnosed tomorrow. Now we have something sad that we don't often talk about is early onset Parkinson's. So there's people, I even heard a story that a baby had it in another country. So people are getting it. There's no way to tell. I mean, if I get it, unfortunately, I'll have to fight it and deal with it. But there's like Michael J. Fox had it around his 30s. If you saw that movie he released lately, it really changed, life-changing movie, the first one to concentrate on Parkinson's. That you're seeing it more pop up. Unfortunately, a week ago, Richard Lewis, the famous comedian, passed away due to Parkinson's. Ozzy Osbourne, Janet Reno, some really influential people. And it's sad that they're getting it, but they're actually able to help reach more people than I ever could. And, I actually had a luck the draw. Kenny G, the famous saxophone player, played a song and said a message in memory of my mother. It's on our website, togetherforsharon.com. But my mother loved that music, and I got tortured with it as a child throughout half my life, but then fell in love with it too. So, it's beautiful. I love Kenny G and Michael Bolton and Lionel Richie, and
oh my gosh, I listened to that.
That had to be exciting to have him dedicate a song to your mom. That's always cool.
And I'm actually trying to reach out to one of Ozzy's sons to also give a message of hope, because he's a caregiver. I actually have more interest in the families, because I was a family who was fighting this with as a caregiver. I'm just curious. It's hard to reach them though, and I'm just one son again, trying to get awareness out. When I started togetherforsharon.com, I thought maybe 3 people would see it, and that would be nice. At least some people would see my mother's journey. But we realized the other day, the little counter hidden on the front page, it said there's been over 30,000 people visit. And, that's why we do what we do, just because I want this disease to be ended. And I even think in my own mind, do I want my daughter, to keep it going when I'm no longer with us? And I actually say to myself, no, because I want Parkinson's to be gone from our planet. And I don't want to have to do all this. Obviously, come on, we'll talk about back pain maybe, but I don't want people out there, diagnosed, and more people, even myself or friends, families. It's just really tragic. And I think it could be ended and stopped if we could get more awareness. You see, again, with COVID, it's horrible what happened. We don't have a cure, but we had a shot, at least something. I feel like we could have that for Parkinson's tomorrow if we just had more awareness.
Do you think that, are you kind of hoping that they can eradicate it completely like they did with smallpox or polio? Or do you think that you're wanting it to be like, if we could have a shot that they get once a year to control it? Like, what are your hopes?
Slow it down.
Like to slow it down, or?
That's why I love coming on these shows, because you're bringing up some questions that are so important that others haven't even talked about. Like I always say, and I'm very honest, because I'm from Brooklyn, that it's kind of tiresome just saying the same story. I love my mother, but that question's the first time I've gotten that, so thank you. But my dream would be really would, number one, to be end the damn disease. Sorry for the talk, but that would be my first dream. But I would like, obviously now, maybe to have something where it can help people that don't have to suffer. I made so many friends now who I consider family. One gentleman named Stephen Williams, he's had to leave his life as a truck driver. I mean, he's a guy who loves driving trucks. I don't like driving down the block, but he loves it. And he had to stop, and you have to stop. Now he makes shirts with Parkinson sayings, and he actually helped me design a mug that's Together for Sharon mug. And all the money, like it's his website, it goes to him. Like I will not accept money. If you send me $1 today, I'd send it back to you or put it in one of the Michael J. Fox Foundation, because that's their thing. I don't want any dealing with the money stuff, but. So that's one of my dreams coming, is to try to have maybe a section on my page of everybody's websites who have Parkinson's, and any way I can do to help them, even just to forge medicines. They're not being helped enough. That would be something I want. But I want people to not have to have, there's something called DBS where they actually go in to do brain surgery. And it's amazing, because I interviewed someone once, and they pressed a button and it was off, and they couldn't stop shaking. He was a famous guitar player he actually played with Santana. and he had this brain surgery. He pressed the button, boom, gone. Now
Oh,
it's still horrible to have to go through brain surgery, but thankfully they have it, and it doesn't work for everyone. You have to see your own doctor for that. But I don't want people to even have to have, major surgeries and things. I want them to, whether it's a shot or I heard years ago my mother was alive and it never came through, that they were like 2 years from finding a pill that you take and that would be the end of it. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. And so to answer that question, it's not an easy one, but first I want to end it. But for the people who still have it, who we can't end it, I want them to have something, whether shot or a pill, so that they can, enjoy their life. And this disease, the worst part about it isn't even, I mean, it's horrible, the mental, the anguish, the physical and what it does to you, but just taking away the memories is the worst part. I remember she passed again 1/1/2020 around the holiday, and we left a seat for her, and that was heartbreaking. But I still do that today, and I still, not a day, a moment, even after we close the camera, that I don't miss my mother. And it's just very, very tough thing to even still deal with.
Does dementia come with Parkinson's? I mean, is that something that they automatically go in to
That's a
if they
great
have it?
question. Yeah, it doesn't occur to everyone. So if you have Parkinson's, does not mean they'll have dementia. I never even heard of dementia either, to be honest, till my mother had it. But there are people with Parkinson's though that did not get dementia. So again, it's so complicated because it's so different for each person. But I feel like could be we need more time on this, which we won't. Our stomach was literally destroyed from the medicines for Parkinson's. So that was the last year we had to have the caregivers round the clock because she had to have things that are tough topics, enemas and things that I never even dreamed of, and fiber pills and this and that. But when she passed, we had 4 huge garbage bags of medicines. And even to this day, I'm not sure if the people who were watching her were giving them the right amounts, giving them the right time. They had a journal. Who knows if I couldn't even read the journal. I actually kept the journal. I should probably bring it, show sometime. But, it's just very complex and hard for someone who, like me, has no medical background. I just want to be comfortable and not have to go through the hell that she did.
Yeah. Does it affect, I know it's a part of the brain, but does it affect the memory of the brain?
No, that's more, I guess, Alzheimer's and things like that. So unfortunately, there's a disease, we have that covered. And, Alzheimer's, unfortunately, with Alzheimer's, I'm not an expert. I made some friends and interviewed some people, but there's so many more people with it. That's why there is a lot more awareness and people are kind of more aware of it. There's actually a lot more for it, but no cure either. Yeah. So my dream would be to end all these diseases. But for now, I still have to focus on the one that kind of destroyed my family. Yeah. We picked up the pieces and we take the darkness and we shine light on it. There are a lot of good things. Again, meeting individuals like you both and so many inspiring stories. And at togetherforsharon.com, I've interviewed, again, I mentioned earlier, a year ago, I didn't realize there were 10 million people around the world with Parkinson's. I didn't even think of it. So I decided a year ago in 2023 that it really wasn't just about me and my mother anymore. It was about everybody around the world going through this tragic disease. So I decided, why not try to reach out? And somehow it took off, and I put thousands of hours into it. But I've interviewed over 600 people from Africa to India to Australia, Iceland, Finland, places, Spain, France, Italy. I mean, I could go on for an hour.
awesome.
There are people around the world. So if you go to the website and then you click on interviews, you'll see every morning a new one shows up. I don't know. It's hard sometimes to show, but it's kind of, So, but if you go there, you'll see different journeys. So every morning I wake up, I see someone else's story. And this was Dominique Prins. She's from the Netherlands, and she does yoga for Parkinson's. So there's so many, in my opinion, heroes out there and inspirational stories that just, keep me, again, pushing and going. And I'm never going to stop until then. We're actually going to release 4-book set of all the interviews that I've done. And that'll be amazing because that's going to go again around the world. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, that will be really awesome. Because like we talked about before, you just don't want to know you're alone in this disease, right? Whether you're the person with the disease or you're the caregiver. Because
Yeah, I even had someone anonymous write me, some gentleman. He said, I was on your website reading stories for 10 hours, and I'm thinking, don't do that.
That's a
I
long
wanted to, it's amazing because he saw it, but I wanted to still have his life. So that makes you feel good that, again, we're not here for money and we're just here to advocate for a cure and to know that everybody's not alone. And if you ever are sad that day or a caregiver, whether you're diagnosed or someone out there like me who lost a loved one due to Parkinson's, that you can come to the site for free. I interview people for free. I put there's always a catch, but there isn't here. And that's where I'm shifting my focus. My book coming out in April is going to really be again about my mother's journey and mine from caregiver to advocate. But my next book, which I didn't even plan, I wasn't going to do, is literally going to be all around people like me, those who lost a loved one, but we're still here. We still have a voice. Unfortunately, in my opinion, a lot of the bigger organizations forget us. I had an issue the other day, which I was sad, and where, again, I don't name names, and I love everyone, but some organization, to be nameless, even in the book, put out a thing like, would you want to serve? This is like as a lawyer, it was an advertisement. When you send someone an email, an invitation. So, do you want to serve on a committee? It wasn't to me, it was just general. And to help talk about Parkinson, I was like, yeah, I would love to be that. Now, in my mind, I thought I wouldn't get it anyway, but why not apply? It's an invitation. So I sat for 3 hours, really into it, researched. I cited it with my PhD skills that don't get me far, and I had it all done. So when I was about to submit it, there were two buttons. So it said, you have Parkinson's, and number two, you're a caregiver of someone with Parkinson's. So guess what? There's no spot for me, and I feel like we should have a voice at the table just as much as anyone else. And that really kind of broke my heart and made me feel like my mother passed away again. So I just didn't sleep for a week and knocked out like a 150-page book. And I'm probably not going to release it for a while because there's a lot more I'm going to talk about the dark side of social media and advocacy, because I had some weird things happen. I'm sure you both do if you're online. And the 99% of the people are 99.9 are so incredible. Like you two are. When I reached out, you gave me the chance, and but there's always some reason 1% being in law enforcement and a lawyer you expect it wouldn't be, but that are cuckoo, and you can't ever let those two or one ever stop you from the fight, and no one will ever will. So that's my message in the next one. I'm really excited for that one, but it's not easy writing a book. It's like it's literally 1 page or 1 second away from being out there. I'm just waiting for the final edit. It's just torturing me. I want to be able to share with you. I can't.
Yeah.
So do you self-publish, or do you have like a publishing company that you work with?
That was another journey and decision. I decided that, I spent a lot. I'm never going to make anything back on the book. I'm going to be honest, because I put a lot into it with an editor, and she's amazing, but it was expensive. And I want it out more for people to be able to be aware, and that they know that I've gone through it, and maybe they can even learn one lesson, and maybe I'll help them care for themselves more. But I decided not to do a publisher because that would have cost a lot. Plus, I've heard, some of them don't pick it up, but then I'd have to wait another year. So in 2024, we don't, no offense to them out there, but I feel like you don't really need publishers now.
Yeah.
Even as a professor, we don't even use books now. Everything's called open source to save money for students and things. And my wife and I even did research because we were going to have a little time, like just my own La La Land type of book showing where I'd have 20, 30 friends. I'll sign them in the back. But because of my surgery, we were going to probably do in the future. But we can't even find in a historic art area a bookstore. Like there's no bookstores at all around South Florida. The only one left is like Barnes and Nobles, but that's not really intimate. I was really, in my mind, picturing that intimate bookstore type style, the old days. And so, to be honest, I think self-publishing for me is the way to go, but I could be wrong, and maybe in the future I'll do the other way. But I needed this out like now, and it's been 4 years. A lot of what's interwoven throughout the book is my journal. I kept the journal for the last year. I never shared the pictures and video because I didn't want my mother remembered, but the journal shows the deep, dark side of what caregiving is. And from my perspective, you'll see the anguish again, the days I wanted to give up, but I didn't. I have a passion for exercise. That's the number one thing everyone should, even if you don't have Parkinson's. But I remember one day, it takes me 80 hours now to get prepared to go play with my friends. I have like a group of 50 guys and very competitive. I had to put like 10 ankle braces because I broke them every ankle. And so I was all prepared on a Sunday morning at 8 a.m., excited to get my 1 hour a week, forget everything, get some exercise. And, my mother called, said she needed me, and I dropped it all and ran to her. And that would happen over and over and over. And it was, the last year was very tough because part of me in my selfish part, wanted my mother with me forever, but the son and the humanity side said she's suffering and we can't have this anymore. So I don't know if she peacefully passed, but the last 7 days was something out of a nightmare. And she was alive, but only had a heartbeat. She didn't speak, didn't eat. And it was, we don't have Death with Dignity Act in Florida, which they're working on. But I think that's horrible that we often treat our animals better than our loved ones.
Yeah. And it's hard to watch. That's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch. My grandfather passed the same way.
Yeah.
In my grandmother's living room. Yeah. He didn't eat or didn't speak, wasn't awake.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically let him starve to death, basically.
Well, we were on something they just started in Florida. I don't know if they offer it everywhere, but it was 1 year of hospice. Normally, I don't know what normal is anymore, but you have like hospice. You go in maybe a weekend, a week, and that's it. We had for a year, and it was in a way it was great because they brought real official certified nurses. So I had some help, but then the bad reality is when you go into hospice, and I don't know why, they terminate any ability to have physical therapy. And that crushed my mother big time because when you have the ability to therapy, you still have some hope. Because again, remember, under the law in Florida and really most places, Parkinson's is not classified still as an end-of-life disease. So you can't even get benefits or certain health care or anything. We were really lucky to have that program that was just started. But I'll never forget, I mean, my mother was very sick, so she couldn't do one session. I come to her house one day, the guy, no offense to him, but he was wacky, running to the door, like urgent, telling me, look, she can't do it anymore. And me, I didn't like how he was talking because you don't want your loved one to hear that. But when that ended, I mean, I still I did stuff alone with her and she had exercise machine. But when you don't have that, now you lost your independence, your ability almost to walk without a cane. Now you're taking away the car because she could have been a danger to her and herself and others. Now you're taking away physical therapy. I mean, what are you leaving the poor person with? It's horrible.
Well, I know that once you start, when they put you on hospice, they're doing so because they think that you're close to the end of your life. That's the only reason. I mean, because my aunt, she passed of cancer too. That's the only reason that ever kicks in here. I mean,
well, yeah,
everywhere.
My uncle was on hospice. I believe he had dementia and some other things, but I think they only had hospice for maybe 6 months.
Right. That's what they usually, but
yeah. I mean, I don't know what the law is here regarding that. But
so you said that it's not a disease that's supposed to cause death. So then what did they claim she officially died from?
That's a good question because even to this day, it's just Parkinson's and dementia. There was nothing else. Yeah, I mean, there was no other health issues. I mean, I feel it could have been due to that, but not really. Maybe the medicines, because they accelerate. Something happened that day when she went that really just completely fast forwarded everything. And she wouldn't have been in the hospital that night. She also had a UTI, which I never even heard of before. Because all these things, mess with your mind, your body, everything, your stomach. So I do have this. I just started. People don't really like to talk about it, but since we were on the topic, I learned back then, and I didn't even know. Many people aren't aware and really curious, but there's supposedly, 5 stages of Parkinson's. The first one is where symptoms are kind of mild and don't interfere with daily activities. Stage 2, this is where it becomes worse, making daily activities a little more difficult, like walking and balancing. Stage 3, symptoms are mid, they're more severe, but the person still can have their independence, so they can still live, but the loss of balance and bradykinesia, which is slowness of movement, happens. Stage 4 is independent living is almost impossible. That's where they're very limited. And finally, the one that I hated the most, I mean, I hate them all, but symptoms debilitating at stage 5, so severe that you can't even stand anymore. Unfortunately, we went through all these. And then also it's round the clock care is needed, from delusion, hallucinations, the loss of smell. Constipation was a show. I actually did a show, just an hour on that. Weight loss, sleep disturbance, and vision problems. And unfortunately, my mother had them all. So like I might have to do a show someday on the 5 stages. But I don't know, a lot of
because
people.
it's all nerves, so that makes sense. I mean, the nerves, nerves that affect most of the function in your body. Mm-hmm. So that does make sense. That would affect that wide range.
I mean, do you think that the medication, so you're saying like it possibly exacerbated it? Did you guys ever consider like a holistic approach to see if that would,
or if there even is one?
Yeah, if there is one, or, because I know a lot of people talk about with cancer, if you are on a specific diet and you do, X, Y, and Z, where, parents have lived 15 to 20 years longer because they've done a holistic approach. Because I mean, medication, not only is it maybe not great for your body, but it also can be really expensive and just not readily available.
Yeah, we tried everything. Like, that's why I said we don't have the hours to talk, but and this is a funny story or odd, but I'm a police officer and I'm a lawyer, but we even tried getting a medical marijuana license. And I remember when I was going for the first time into like one of the stores, just kind of scared of the video camera was going to catch me.
And you're a police officer.
Well, my dream
give
was
me all your gummies.
Well, we tried that. I mean, I wanted my mother not to have pain, and I would have done anything. As long as it was legal, I wouldn't do illegal stuff. There isn't really anything. There's nothing even illegal you could do for Parkinson's anyway, but the disclaimer there. But so that was interesting. Unfortunately, in Florida, again, it was so new. It was like literally now it's kind of getting bigger and people are more aware. But the distilleries who sell it will not speak to the doctors who prescribe it. And there's like a communication mess. So basically, we only tried the pills because I don't like smoking things. I'm like big with smells and allergies, but I never understood the smell. But so we tried it one time. Either she fell over in the wheelchair, like tired, or it gave her even worse delusions and hallucinations.
So she
didn't even. Yeah, so we went through like a 6-month process of paperwork. A lot of them, it was very expensive too, and it didn't work out. But I'm glad we tried it. I was hoping it was our last hope that it would work because nothing worked. But unfortunately, it just didn't happen for us.
Yeah, and it probably is like everything else. Is that because like the disease is different for every person? Maybe the medicine affects that, a person differently. So it would work for some and not for others.
Which I'm sure is what makes it so complicated and maybe why there hasn't been a cure, because every single person is so different. With certain diseases, it's like, okay, well, there's this checklist that everybody has,
a certain
thing, and we get certain markers. But with this, it's like, this affects this person this way, this person this way, this person this way. And so that could probably be frustrating.
There's no pretty box with a ribbon.
I know. Wouldn't that be nice?
That everyone fits into.
Here's your box for the cure. Here's your box for your cure.
Yeah, I know. Right?
That's one question. We started our own podcast that's interviewing people in the Parkinson's world. Have a few big ones. I'm actually interviewing the Secretary of State of Florida this month on elderly affairs. I don't really, to be honest, to this day, no offense to Florida, but my home state, I don't even know what they offer, if anything, for people with Parkinson's. Because I'm in South Florida, Boca Raton, which is one of the highest in the jokes in the movies. Even Al Pacino, De Niro movies, they say I'm going to Boca. We have a big elderly population, and we don't have much at all for people with Parkinson's. They have some small community things. We have a great university, FAU, my alma mater, that has programs, but even I went to try and help promote them, and there were only 5 to 10 people at these events. And it's sad because there's like 3 million people or more in Palm Beach County. We might not be able to vote, but we should be able to offer some type of, help for people with Parkinson's disease. So,
you can't, wait, what? You can't vote? Wait, what?
No, back in the hanging Chad days. Now we're perfect and we're on target.
Got it. The hanging Chad days. Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was such a big scandal.
You're coming back to that again, so who knows? I don't even want to get into that.
We can't get into that.
That's like a whole.
The good news about that is, again, back to the National Plan on Parkinson's. Both of my senators have signed on to support it, so we really need we need every senator in the United States to say yes, and then this will be passed. And I wish I could be there that day, but I don't know. They never know, things going on in Washington when it'll actually go, but that's important.
So it's on the docket, like currently?
No, it passed the House, so we're waiting to hear when it will be. I'm really excited. At the end of this month, I'm going to be interviewing the an individual who runs the entire advocacy for the Michael J. Fox Foundation about the plan. And I interviewed Paul Tonko. He's a U.S. representative in New York on the plan, and that's on the website. So been able to reach some incredible people, and this stuff is growing. But I don't think it's growing just because I'm helping or advocating. It's growing because more and more people, unfortunately, learning about it because a loved one has it, a friend, or somebody like famous celebrities are now, unfortunately, fighting it.
I mean, it is nice, like, you want to fight this, and sometimes celebrities are a hot mess, but when they when they do something like this, that's beneficial, it is kind of nice to have their notoriety and just their reach and their influence and all those things, because that's how things, unfortunately,
it will get out there
faster with more people.
Yeah.
Ironically, we just added, and I don't know if I like the word celebrity or people with Parkinson, but we added a little slot for celebrities on my website, togetherforsean.com, and it shows my Kenny G's voice, his message, and he's playing the song. And I had the honor a month ago to meet Mr. Michael J. Fox, and that changed my life because he's my hero. He's somebody who literally could have, when he got Parkinson's, he could have just been quiet, private, which I have no problem with because people deserve that. But instead, he decided to fight back. And I mean, he's raised over $2 billion, not million, $2 billion. Unfortunately, he's not doing well. I don't know if you saw a few weeks ago, he won an award, and they had to have him brought out on a wheelchair. And that's why I don't go out a lot to these events. It's because it's hard with work and family. But my wife and I learned about, because a friend, he loves meeting celebrities. I was never into that. He travels the world meeting celebrities. He just texted me and said, guess what, Michael J. Fox will be in Orlando at an event that had nothing to do with Parkinson's. It was more for Back to the Future. And I love the movie, but I wouldn't have gone for that. And I decided, I looked at my wife and said, I'm not going to go. It's just, it's hard because of work. And she said, you don't know. It could be, you never know when it could be the last shot to try to meet him. And I said, you're right. And we dropped everything, drove there. And it was like one of the best moments of my life, but also the toughest, because I gave him a band and he actually wore it in all the photos. I didn't even know that. The whole day he met thousands of people. He was wearing the Together for Sharon band. And so now I knew he knew about the website. He knew about my mother, and he knew that we love him and that we're fighting for him too. But at the same time, I was happy. I was so sad to see what the disease has done to him. Most of the people you meet there were standing, and he had to be, sitting. So that was tragic for me and great at the same time. And then we also have the celebrity. I was really lucky to interview one of Muhammad Ali's daughters, and she shared some incredible stories with him and Parkinson's. And there's a lot of other people I might be talking to. But, like you said, I actually met Janet Reno when I was younger, when she was Attorney General, amazing woman. And there's a lot of people out there that can make a big dent and make a voice. And I had spoken to Richard Lewis's agent a month ago, literally. He said at this time he'd have to say no, but maybe in the future. And then I was really sick to find out 2 weeks ago he actually passed due to Parkinson's disease. Richard Lewis is a very famous comedian with Curb Your Enthusiasm and some of the young, he's very, very legendary. And it's just another life that should still be here if it wasn't for Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, I know.
That they say nobody dies from.
I know. They say nobody dies from it, but then people are dying from it. So they've got to get there. They got to figure that out.
They got to
I've even had people question that, like, hey, wait a minute. And then they're really nice. And, people don't want to talk. The next book I told you might be controversial because I'm going to cover topics people don't want to think about. Someone said we have a beginning, middle, and an end of our life, but no one ever wants to talk about the end, which I don't blame them. But if we don't talk about it, like having a will, having a power of attorney. My father, unfortunately, doesn't have that. He has kidney disease. He's in the emergency room. He was in the ICU for 2 weeks a few weeks ago. Then he moved to the regular hospital. Now he's in rehab for a week or two. But he didn't plan. I've told him 100 times I love him, but he didn't have a power of attorney. He didn't have a will. He didn't have anything. So guess what? I was frantically going in chaos recently trying to help him, and he's now got an eviction notice to his house where he lives. And all these are things that could be prevented, but he's stubborn. So I just recommend everyone out there listening, you got to think about these things. My mother was a saint in a way. She always planned like I do, but she didn't plan on dying of Parkinson, but she had her funeral already done, everything, which was heaven for me because it was a horrible day enough. I gave a speech, it's online. It was so hard to get through. But imagine also having to deal with that. I don't want to sit there and pick the plot. And then I was the power of attorney, because we had a lot of banking things we had to deal with when she got sick. And also, the will was done. So we had a good family, but you have families, unfortunately, who fight over nonsense. And these are the things that could all be kind of smoothed out, done, and prepared. I'm only 46. I have them all done. They're for my kids and my wife, completely done. And it wasn't because of my mother. It's just, something I thought had to be done. But that's just a little tip for caregivers, I hope, out there who, kind of put it in the back of their mind, but you don't want to have to do that, when it's almost too late.
Yeah. I know. That's probably also the lawyer in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I never dreamt of being a lawyer for my mother, which, I didn't want to be, but you don't have to be a lawyer to do all that.
I know. Well, my husband and I don't have a will, and my father is a lawyer who does will and testaments.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
Now I know what you'll be doing this weekend, I hope.
I know. I keep telling him, hey, Dad, you gotta do that one for me and him. And he's like, yeah, just like call me. And I'm like, okay, but I probably should do it. He's like 85. I probably should do it sooner.
Well, my husband, we went to a home and garden show, and there was actually someone there that did it. Yeah, they were selling it for people, and
that's kind of
my
nice.
husband was thinking about it. I mean, I think that you hit a certain age, and if you have kids, it's beneficial to have. If something happens to either of you. So,
well, we had something written up when we went to Costa Rica, like some just
some handwritten thing.
No, like he wrote it up for us. Yeah. He wrote it up for us, but it wasn't like a will. It was kind of like, if anything happens, this is who gets our kids.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you inherited 3 children.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, mazel tov. Here you go. Well, if you could leave our listeners with one thing, if you can narrow that down, what would it be? Because I know you said you did have one thing that you say at the end of everything. So what is that?
Well, first, I want to thank both of you. It's been an honor and pleasure to get to know you, and I hope this doesn't end again here. I have an open door for you all and everyone listening to this recorded live. Again, it's very important. So thank you all. But we love. This is my message to you and all those out there fighting any disease. But we love you. We support you, and we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I will advocate for you along with the 2 beautiful ladies here, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say, not a joke, but I always say I'm just getting started, because although I've been doing it for some time, and unfortunately I lost my mother a few years ago, every time again I meet people like you or your viewers, or people who are going through this diagnosis, or even people who lost a loved one, when I hear their journey, it just inspires me to keep pushing, keep fighting, even to the point of my own detriment of my own health, which my wife's not happy about. But I just passionate about this. I don't want anything. Please don't send anything. If you want to donate, we have a link, but it goes literally to these other organizations like the Parkinson's Foundation. It's in memory of my mother, which is beautiful. It has her picture, but the link's there. So I'm not involved. But the only journey, lastly, that breaks my heart today is the one that I'm not aware of, because I think there's people, and I know there's people out there still that need a voice, and I want to fight for them, and I'll be the voice for the voiceless and those who don't want to speak up. So again, I'm so grateful for both of your time and your audience, and just send my love, and thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And if you don't mind, we can link the togetherforsharon.com on our social media. And if anyone out there listening is fighting this battle alone, go to togetherforsharon.com and read some stories and inspiration, and know that you're not fighting this alone. And we're grateful to have you on, George, and we look forward to, talking more with you and advocating with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.